One evening I was watching TV when I happened to peer out the front window. I thought I heard someone coming up the porch steps. I didn't blink as I was watching for something to appear. Then all of a sudden, I could see gleaming eyes moving back and forth. It startled me. My heart was racing as I slowly walked to get a closer look, hoping my eyes weren't deceiving me. My eyes were not deceiving me. It was only my cousin who showed up for a last-minute visit. The glaring was the inside light reflecting off her glasses. I happily invited her in, and we sat in the addition and chatted for a few hours. While we were talking, a loud music sound made us jump. I knew it was coming from the computer. It happens when you shake the mouse to make it come out of sleep mode. We laughed at each other for being scared, sat down, and started the conversation again. It happened 4 more times while she was visiting, and each time we couldn't figure out how it was happening. She then thanked me for the coffee and was on her way. I went into the room shortly after she left to examine the computer mouse, but there was nothing that could have caused it to shift or even move at all. It never happened again. Some nights I'd be sitting on the love seat in the addition, enjoying the warmth of the fire, and would get this feeling of something softly crawling on top of my head. I'd sit up quickly and shake my head to find nothing. Of course, I'd keep a lookout for large spiders, but never found any around. On 3 separate occasions, it felt as if someone was trying to style my hair. My mane would be gently pulled back, almost as if a mother was trying to braid her child's soft tresses. I would slowly grab my long hair and pull it forward to my chest, quietly thinking, please stop. I'd glance around suspiciously to see nothing. From one extreme to the other, I even had things thrown at me. It felt like small pebbles being tossed from a distance. I could hear the pinging sound of them bouncing off the floor, the furniture, the walls, but after close inspection, I could find no evidence. Nothing was loose or falling from the ceiling, and I had no stones or any kind of decor with stones or pebbles, so I have no clue where all the, I'm assuming, small rocks were coming from. One night I could hear a whooshing sound somewhere in the addition, so I stopped and listened quietly. The sound was coming from the window. It was as if someone was pouring sand inside the wall, and it was sifting through the insulation. I got up from the couch and put my ear to the wall to make sure it was coming from inside. It was. I backed up, scratched my head, and thought for a minute. I pounded on the wall, thinking maybe some insulation was falling, but the sound kept getting louder. I had to investigate, so I went to see where our dog was. She was sleeping in the living room, so I knew she wasn't inside digging in the sand. I grabbed a flashlight and went out on the porch. I leaned over the railing and shone it down the side of the house by the window, but it was quiet and nothing had been disturbed on the ground. I returned inside the house and listened again to the sound of sand being dumped into the wall. I put my ear up to the wall one more time and listened intently. I stayed there for a few minutes before I let out a little, "Hello? Is someone trapped in the wall?" I slowly smiled, and out of the nowhere there was a loud bang! It was so violent, as if someone had used their fist to bang on the wall to try to scare me. It made my ears ring, and I felt the vibration through my skull. Before the bang in my ear, I thought maybe it could be a mouse, but no mouse could be that powerful. I don't know which would be more worrying, though, a ghost stalking up on pebbles and throwing them at me, or a large jacked-up rodent building nests in my walls. Now, a lot happened in the house over the years, so sometimes at work I would tell my stories to close colleagues to freak them out. One weekend I decided we all needed to let loose and have some fun, so I invited everyone to my house for food, drinks, and games. I went home after work and started making hors d'oeuvres until my guests arrived. I was ready for some gossip and good times, but the evening was short-lived. Each of us had just poured a drink and found a comfy seat to relax in. All I could hear was music, laughter, and girls chatting loudly over each other. A half hour into the party, the power went out and everyone went silent. I knew I had my lighter on the coffee table, but before I could reach for it, my sister jumped onto my lap like a frightened girl and clung to my neck. I tried to calm her down as I was reaching for the lighter. I picked it up and flicked it a few times to see where my candles were. The living room was nothing but absolute silence. I knew no one was thinking it was a power outage because the houses across the street still had lights. Something greater than us all was playing tricks. No one wanted to move, and I could feel a sweaty tension in the air. A few minutes later, the power came back on, and I was ready to have another drink and keep the social going. Nope. As soon as all the lights came on, all I could hear were feet shuffling for the door and women fumbling to find their shoes. It was chaos. One of the girls was annoyingly shouting, "I can't find my other shoe! I need my other shoe!" I watched calmly but disappointingly from a distance as these ladies scrambled to get out. One of the last girls to run for the hills turned back as she was about to close the door and quickly said, "I've heard stories about this house. Sorry, I'm not sticking around." So there I was, all alone in the quiet with a drink in my hand and a bunch of uneaten snacks on the table. I shrugged my shoulders, finished my tasty beverage, cleaned the mess, and went to bed. Wow, what a party. Now, not everything that transpired in the house was creepy. We did have ourselves some nice barbecues with friends, birthday parties, good times, and great memories throughout the years. Then one winter night, the most unexplainable thing occurred. Now, to completely fathom what took place, you have to know the layout of my kitchen. It was a basic kitchen with a large L-shaped countertop. There was a large, flat, wooden floating shelf on the wall. On the shelf were some oversized bottles filled with colored beans used for decoration. And when I say large, they were about 1.5 feet high. Behind the bottles was a painting of a sailboat on the ocean, something cheap I picked up at a yard sale. The painting was hung quite low on the wall, and the bottles were sitting directly in front of it. My husband was standing by the kitchen sink on one side of the counter, and I was on the other side. I was talking about laundry and mentioned it would be nice if he would fold clothes for once. He jokingly said, "That's a woman's job. You do it." I replied, "You do it." This went back and forth. The banter went on for a few seconds before we started laughing at each other. He turned to face the sink and I turned to face the living room, and within that moment, all we heard was a large crash of glass breaking. I quickly covered my head and slowly turned around to find the sailboat painting smashed on the edge of the counter, 7 feet away from its original spot. We both stopped and looked at one another as I jokingly said, "Okay, man, calm down. I'll do the laundry then." I didn't know what else to say and thought it would lighten the mood. We tried to piece things together but couldn't come to a reasonable conclusion. If the nail had given away, the painting would have just fallen onto the wooden shelf, tipping forward and knocking over the bottles, but nothing was disturbed. It had to be thrown upward at least 2 feet towards the ceiling, clearing the bottles, then change directions, landing 7 feet away on the edge of the counter. We couldn't make sense of it. I grabbed the broom and dustpan and managed to clean up all the glass on the counter and the shards that landed on the floor. My husband and I didn't say a word to each other. We only cleaned. Just in case you're at the edge of your seat with anticipation, yes, it was me who folded the laundry that night. Stay tuned for part 4.